Thanks once again for joining me on the channel. Welcome to the International Harvester build number, I'm not sure, it might be 10, 12, 15, I don't know. But this is getting a two-wheel drive HEMI chassis, and the first thing we got to do is get it up into the air. This truck has been affectionately dubbed Bonnie and Clyde. And why would we call it that? Well, because it's got a ton of bullet holes in it. From the inside, from the outside. Somebody had a grand old time with this. And we would leave these windows in, but it's just not safe, even though it looks cool.
Let me give you a little background on Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde sat in this spot in the woods for 40 years. This truck had trees trying to reclaim it, strangle it if you will, pull it back down into the earth, and they saved it. They drug it out and brought it here.
As soon as we find a two-wheel drive HEMI Durango donor to go underneath it, this thing's gonna be doing smoky burnouts, so stay tuned.
Our buddy that owns this truck actually grew up with it. It was in their family. He learned how to drive a manual transmission because it belonged to his father. And then it sat in the woods all those years until they finally brought it here to Ohio so that I could save it.
But first things first, we gotta get this body off and this chassis out, so come along.
Now they pulled the valve cover off of it, not because they wanted to check the condition of the engine, because clearly with the trees growing through it, this was never going to run again. But they took that off as a souvenir because they knew this engine was going to be gone. The whole underpinnings, the chassis, everything, it was just going to be scrapped. It's too far gone to save, but the body, the character, that is what we're saving. And you got to take them apart and get started, so that's what we did.
Shut and roll the carts if we go. I know. Alright, it's out of the way. Well, we are definitely testing the weight limit of the contraption. The grill of this international truck, not only is it bent up, but it's curled over. If you look right here, that's curled. It has to look like that when I'm done. So I have to pull it all apart and heat it and pound on it and get that to resemble a normal fender, because right now it just looks like a fat lip. So the cab is off, the chassis is hauled away, and the bed, which is getting a wood floor later, is ready to be sectioned. If you're noticing that Bronco over in the corner, that is another build. Stay tuned to the channel, watch for updates on that. That's Coyote Ugly, who are going to be putting a big gnarly motor in it, and that'll be a lot of fun. So in the meantime, what I have is a giant mess. Let me clean this up, and we'll start to alter this truck to fit on
a two-wheel drive tire shredding
HEMI Durango. So it's modern underneath and old on the top, just the way we like it. We'll get this all cleaned out and get the floor cut out and get it suspended back up in the air, section the bed into a million little pieces,
This thing was incredibly solid for sitting in the woods and half buried in the mud for 40 years, but a lot of it was really just crumbly, and it's going to take a big effort, but I'm ready for it. Let's get it done.
And set it aside until we get our donor over here.
Speaking of awesome Chrysler products and HEMI-powered things, check this out.
So it's a little cold up here in the north, but I wanted to show you this truck. We pulled into my buddy's shop, and this is sitting here. And these are really cool because it's your basic SUV that was an SUV before they started using that term. This is a 1984 Dodge Ram Charger, and they're four-wheel drive. They're V8. They're usually 360 or 318 powered. And what makes these cool, aside from their tractor-like ability to perform off-road, is they're pretty reliable, these old Dodge motors. The sheet metal wasn't the best on them. But one thing I wanted to point out about these trucks, what makes them cool, is the early ones, Plymouth, also a division of Chrysler Motors, had a Plymouth Trail Duster. And I also had one in 1974 it was. I had it in the 80s. The tops used to be removable like the Broncos. So these haven't begun to ascend in value the way Broncos have, but believe me, these are coming. So if you know where any of these are, you want to get them now. In the 73, 74 era, the tops came off right here. There was a seam, and the whole top came off like this. And then right here was another seam, like a Blazer. It's a step in the door, and then the whole top would unbolt from the inside, and you had like a safari vehicle. The thing was sweet. Later in the late 70s, they had these where the top came off, but they left this door frame, and that looks really silly. It was a rollover protection law or some crap. They look terrible. I'm not a fan, so if I end up with one, I want the one where the top comes off altogether, but if not, I think I would do that myself and cause that to happen. One downfall, aside from the Chrysler sheet metal, is they got about 9 or 10 miles per gallon. So they were pretty bad, and we used to put big carburetors on them and big headers and big tires and just make it worse. But it was a lot of fun, and they are cool, and the values are rising. So be on the lookout for Plymouth Trail Dusters and early Dodge Ram Chargers.
So that's where I'm going to have to leave it for this episode. But once again, thanks. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned. Follow along with the channel because we've got some amazing things coming. And the next time you see this International, it's going to be moving under its own power.